Hi everybody, welcome back to the Mommentators. Today we've got kind of an interesting topic, one that I actually don't know a whole lot about or hadn't been brought to my attention until I moved to New York, and that's this society of nannyhood and when do you need a little bit of extra help? When do you want to like put your child in daycare? When do you want to have someone come into your home, take care of your child? When do you want someone to come in and live with your family and do your cleaning and take care of your child, which sometimes sounds like a dream come true. So what do you guys think? Any strong opinions about this?
For me, like I just didn't think about it in the beginning at all. I didn't think about having a nanny just because I wasn't working, and to me, it just, for me, it equaled, if you have a nanny, it means you're going to work.
Right.
So that's how I thought of it, and I wasn't going to work right away after I was having the baby, so I didn't even think about it. I was one of the only parents hanging out with my nannies in the park, though.
I did that too. I kept trying, like when I was first-time mom, I am a first-time mom. When my kid was little, I would go into the park and I'd be like, hey, you look about my age, because I'm kind of young, and they're like, yeah, I'm their nanny. I was like, oh. Yeah. Time after time, I got shot down at the playground.
Yeah.
Trying to pick up moms?
Trying to pick up other moms. Hey there.
I was like hanging out with I wasn't even hanging out with the nannies. Sometimes I was hanging out with the grandparents who were taking care of the kids. I really was. One of my, that's what I dealt with. I wasn't really, but I knew that my friend had no choice but to work, so her mother was taking care of the baby.
Right.
So I think in that sense, like there are people that need to go back to work. They have to financially to live where they're living and to pay the bills, and so they bring in if they have family around, great. If not, they have to hire. Some of them have to hire a nanny or go to childcare, and the nanny thing is like a whole different world.
I would personally rather have a nanny than put my kid in childcare. Is that weird?
Well, and your child is very young too. Yeah. Like I think that's sort of.
Well, we have like play dates and stuff that we go to in library time, and when I have to leave, I mean, right now my son is with another mom, and we do child swap. You know, when she needs to leave and go do a job, I watch her son, and vice versa, and that's kind of how we're doing it now. But when I was working full time and I was living across the country from my husband, he went into a house that had another little kid, and they played together, and that was great, and they had, you know, library time and play dates and everything like that. I couldn't bring myself to drop him off at a daycare. But there were plenty of people who did.
When I was actually going back to work part-time after I had my first son. And that sort of awareness when my maternity leave was coming to an end, that I needed to hire a babysitter because I didn't need a full-time nanny. We didn't want to have somebody living in. We didn't have room for that, even if we would have wanted it. It was unfathomable to me at first, the idea of that, you know, even when the baby was first born, you know, like you sort of, you know, this person grows inside of you, and then toward the end of the pregnancy, people are starting to talk about, oh, I can't wait to hold him, I can't wait to meet him, and you think of like, this thing is going to come out of my body and I'm going to hand it to you, like it's going to be like people walking around with my liver, you know, like it's just this. And so I was absolutely terrified, you know, at trusting someone at first, that, you know, someone that we didn't know, that we were hiring.
Mother. Please, the schedules I wrote, and I was like a nightmare in the beginning. I was so scared of anyone. So
but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's so precious and it's so important. But for me, getting the help was really, really meaningful. Now, I know lots of people who have nannies and people who work full time and have completely different arrangements for whatever reason. But I feel like, as a psychotherapist, I've studied so much about that early childhood development time, and I know that like one-on-one connection is so meaningful. And it doesn't mean that, you know, kids who don't have a stay-at-home parent can't grow up to lead meaningful lives and have, you know, healthy personalities and characters. But to me, it's something that I really want to do, and I don't want to miss, you know.
I totally agree. I'm not from New York City, and me and my husband, our family base is not here. They're both in Florida or in Maine. And the first 2 years that Jayla was born, I chose to stay home. I lost that full-time teacher salary as a sacrifice. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, we need the money. But for us, I did it as a financial sacrifice for that one-on-one with my child for the first 2 years. I wanted her to smell me. I wanted her to feel my spirit and interact with me. And I think that, you know, there's nothing more important than putting your child first, as far as, especially in those early years. As an educator, I'm a teacher, I think it's important for children to get what you have to give, especially when they're your assignment. When we're giving children, they're our assignment, not the people who we hire in to help us, though help is important for a mom. But I feel in my opinion, the most important thing is being able to minister to the needs of your own home, your own child. And while I don't, feel negatively about people who do have nannies, I think that something is lost when someone else is nurturing your child in those early stages. And I think that
now, are you talking about nannies like someone who comes in while you're working, or you're talking nannies who like live in, or just any type of nanny?
No, I'm not speaking about, I'm speaking about the ideology of someone else coming in to take care of your child. Like I said, a sitter is fine because all of us need help. But there's something to be said when someone else is doing those roles full-time, dressing your children, taking them to school, taking them to activities full-time consistently.
Yeah.
We all need space, we all need restoration. But in my opinion, there's nothing sweeter than your child smelling you, seeing your face in the morning, feeling your spirit and what you have to give them directly.
Yeah.
Irregardless of how nice or seasoned the nanny or sitter may be, there's just something to be said for that one-on-one with your child. No matter how many kids you have, children yearn for that oneness with their mom.
Yeah,
or their
it's very
parent.
idealistic though, to put it in those terms, and I totally appreciate that because I'm there with you in terms of like
that's my
how
experience.
Right, I mean that's how I was. Both my kids, I was with both of them until they were like 3 years old, like completely. Like, and and now everything's still part-time for me, and I only have a sitter when I need her. But on that note, I do know people who don't feel. They feel that they have to go back to work, not only financially, but also because they're with their kids, let's say a little bit in the morning and at night, dinner time and bedtime and on the weekends, but they don't feel that, they feel that their job makes them a better person, a better parent. They come home fulfilled and ready to give 150% to their kids. And those kids, I think, are great kids. They're very well balanced because they can take in, like, I have this nanny during the day and oh, here comes mom, and they're very balanced and they can accept the whole world, and maybe they're more accepting of different environments. I don't know.
It could lead to like an increased flexibility and comfort with separation,
less anxiety.
The studies
and I also
show
think
when you research children, the behavior of children who are reared, I'm not talking about a sitter, but reared full-time by a nanny, they have resentment towards their parents. If you speak to any nanny in the park, as we see most of the time, and you ask them how the behavior is of a child that's with them all day and how it changes when their parent comes home, they will tell you there is a negative change in that child's behavior towards the parent, like this resentment, and they're acting out because they want that one-on-one, they want that attention.
So what does that parent do then? If they have to work and a nanny's the only like real option, what do you think?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm just thinking like, then you're saying that they shouldn't work.
No, that's not what I'm saying, because I did say before that I do agree that sometimes we need help, but there has to be a balance. If you're working full-time on the weekends, make that special time for your child.
I'm sure.
Have that, because I've spoken to sitters and nannies who say that the parents don't rush home after work, that they come home. Some people, and I know this, maybe not you all, because, but I've been around moms who've gone back to work just because they wanted to get away from the kids. So I'm speaking to a mindset where people use their nannies and sitters as a scapegoat to get back to their old ways. Because a lot of moms struggle with that, wanting to be the old mom.
And maybe that's okay for them.
And that is okay.
Like maybe that's fine for them.
Everybody knows what they need.
Specific things, make those children feel uber special. Because even on the weekends, when you see families, you'll see them with the family, but the nanny will be trucking behind. Let that be that one-on-one time with that child. If you have 3, on Friday take one, on Saturday take the other. I don't know, but what I would say is make that child feel uber special, like they're not being scheduled in. Because sometimes I sense that's the ideology behind it when you have someone else that's doing most of the work. I'm not talking about people who have sitters or people who may have a nanny. I'm talking about the spirit behind someone else doing most of the work. It's like they have to schedule their kid in.
I think work is a really interesting point too, because as a therapist, I think there is a really, important psychological component to that one-on-one connection with parents in early childhood. But I think that the one-on-one attention is still really useful, even if it's from someone else who's very nurturing and experienced with children. And I also think that having an overextended or anxious or depressed parent as your primary connection also, you know, research shows it has a really negative effect on the child as well. And some people are miserable being at home. I mean, I know people who intended to go back to work, and then once they had that baby, they said, forget it, I can't go back to work. I know other people who intended to be stay-at-home parents and were so miserable at home. Just
not because they don't love the child.
Of course, but it's boring and it's tedious and it's annoying and it's like, I mean, it's wonderful. I'm glad that I'm doing it, but I'm glad that I'm fortunate enough to have found a balance. Like, I feel like I have like a work-life balance, you know, and that's one of the hardest things to come by in our culture, I think, right now.
Absolutely.
You know?
I remember having extreme guilt because while I was living across the country from my husband, and I was the only parent there, and we didn't have family. I mean, the closest family was 2.5 hours away. So I was there by myself with this newborn trying to figure it all out. And I had extreme guilt anytime I thought about, I didn't go to a salon for a year. I didn't go to, you know what I mean? Because there was so much pressure of, you're the only thing this child has. You have to be everything.
It's not healthy.
Well, it's not healthy. It isn't.
Just because you have a child doesn't mean that you have to negate some of those needs of taking care of your ups.
And that is hard to do. Like striking that balance of taking care of a child, particularly a really young child, and taking care of yourself. Like I've found that's been the most challenging thing as a parent is to find time to do like self-care.
Oh,
you know,
so
like
important.
self-care is sort of like, you know, I have a friend who is a twin, and she has a younger brother, and she said, and they're like, you know, the three of them are like a year apart. So her mother had like 3 kids under 3, and she said her mother says as soon as they were born, she didn't brush her hair for 3 years. Oh my goodness. You know, and like I thought that was funny when I was pregnant, but then I was like, when was the last time I brushed my hair? After that, you know, and it's really, I think that self-care, and I know for myself, like if I have a balance, if I'm, you know, given the opportunity, and it's hard work to find that time. Like I feel like I have to work to get a little time to myself. It involves so many other people now. It's not like I'm just going for a walk, like forget it, you know. But that I'm much better, it helps me get past my sort of agitation and frustration. I'm more patient when I come back, even after 20 minutes, you know.
We have to also remember that going back like 50 years ago and back further, families lived together and took care of the kids together. It was a whole like village of people, aunts and sisters and uncles. And this is the way people used to live, even in the city. Just like you know, I think about like my grandparents and how they lived in Brooklyn, and they all lived together above each other in the apartments.
My mom has its own stressors.
Right, but my mom loved it. She would just, if her mom had to work because her father died when she was a baby. So my grandmother, my mother's mother, was out every single day. And this is like in the 40s and 50s when it was, you know, she was the only breadwinner, was my mom's mom. So she was out, and the grandmother upstairs took care of my mom.
So what you're saying is that we all need a network and a support system, but that we have to find a balance between what's excessive and what's not.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great way to end this topic, you guys. There's a way to make sure that your family is as healthy and happy as possible. And we are so excited that you all joined us today for this wonderful topic. Be sure and subscribe to our channel so that you can get all of these wonderful updates and these discussions. And make sure to leave us a comment because we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.